What are keyword rankings? I think the best way to describe this is for you just to pull up Google and Google running shoes. And what you're about to see are the 10 or so keyword rankings. You may see a collection of products up at the top, which could be sponsored links. You might see a collection of actual organic shopping, which also still looks like a collection page of a bunch of different types of running shoes. There may be a lot of things you see there, but those are technically the keyword rankings. And let me explain how this works with Google. So based on, like we talked about with our math equation, that SEO is backlinks times or plus content, Google is basically trying to ascertain how much of an expert you are. Let's think about it from Google's perspective for a second. Google is a business. Their business is the business of search. Their business is the business of providing information to searchers, people that are looking for this specific information. Their ultimate goal is to provide you with the best possible answer for your question, for your search intent, for why are you looking this information up, and also then predicting your next few questions or your next few problems or things you want to learn. And so that's what the search results ultimately are. They're categorizing billions of pages a day, and they're distilling it down to just one page of roughly 10 links, roughly. And so I think it's important to note that that is actually what keyword rankings are. But how do they actually function? How do they work? So from my understanding is, once you basically start to rank for a keyword, you basically create a page on your website that basically design it almost intently for that one keyword, which we'll get into this in the future lessons. But basically, let's say you did that. You had a perfect page, perfectly designed to rank for one particular keyword very specifically. But because maybe you have a low domain rating, Google is going to give you that keyword somewhere, probably on page 2 or 3. They're going to give it to you probably right out the gate. So you posted it, you waited like a week, and you kept pushing it to Google Search Console, which we'll talk about later, and finally it shows up, and boom, you get a few impressions for some weird keywords you didn't really mean to. And then ultimately a week later passes, and boom, you got your main keyword. The problem is, though, your main keyword is now on page 4, of Google. So what happens then? So slowly but surely, Google will start testing your keyword rankings. They'll start testing that page, and they'll randomly, let's say 100 people 100 people search for running shoes for kids. Let's use that example again. So 100 people are searching for that every single day, every single month, whatever. Of those 100 people, you are probably ranked 40, just like the Ahrefs and Google Search Console are showing you on average on the 4th page, whatever. But let's say maybe the 10% of those, so 10 of the people, Google will randomly test you by putting you on the first page, just for a second for a couple people's searches, and see what happens. If people are clicking on your link, if people are checking out your website, and if they're interacting with your page and staying there and not bouncing back, then guess what? Your search result goes up higher. That's called click-through rate. If your click-through rate is very strong and you have a low bounce back, which a bounce back is defined as someone who clicks on a link, goes to the web page, and then hits back to literally bounce back to the search results because they were not satisfied. They didn't get answered. Their intent wasn't answered. That's a negative signal. So Google's basically measuring all these signals. There's a lot that we can control. There's a lot that we can't control. But what we definitely can control is user experience. You can put enough content on that page, you can structure it the right way, you can build it the right way to ultimately get on the board, to get somewhere in the rankings, to get usually on page 4, or whatever, or even page 1 if you have a bigger site, and you can do that. But then getting to those top 3 spots is very difficult. You have to exude trust. Your entire website has to exude trust. You have to be a trusted source, which means you have to have a very good theme. If you're a Shopify site, it's got to be clean. It's got to look like you got to have all the social proof signals. People have to love what you're offering, what you're cooking. They have, and consumers are ultimately, you don't even realize what you're doing, even if you're searching for running shoes for kids as you click through those links. But you're basically assessing in like milliseconds how much you're willing to give these people your money and ultimately your time as well. Because you're looking at their site. If they have a really terrible logo that looks like it was made in Photoshop in like 3 minutes, boom, back. They're going to get out of there. If they go to your website and it loads really slow, boom, back. They're getting out of there. There's so many different reasons why you can ultimately fail, even if you get all the SEO parts right. So that's why the SEO is more than just keyword rankings. It's more than just keyword research and creating the perfect page. Because if your website itself is bad, you're never going to rank in the first place. Actually, sorry, you may rank, but you're going to be on the 5th page. So I think it's pretty important to note that whenever we talk about keyword rankings, that is how they operate, that's how they work, and that's how kind of the context. Our goal is to rank in the top 3. Our goal is to rank number 1, period. But even getting in the top 3 or even on page 1, we will still get some clicks out of that. And I think that's important because Google is still testing us. And as we test higher and higher and we get better and better, and we understand your consumer, we understand the search intent of people looking at your site, we heat map your website so we can actually see where people are clicking, which I recommend Microsoft Clarity, by the way. As you're kind of looking at that and you're understanding where people are going, you can just keep building a better UX, a better design for how people are coming in and how you're converting them. We're going to get into all of that, especially like how to convert blog traffic in a future lesson. But that is what keyword rankings are. It's just quite simply Google distilling billions of pages and ultimately trying to make it very simple and put them onto a single page with the most important, most preferential links. This is also why Google's getting a lot of bad flack in the press these days, because with the boom of AI and all this AI content, the problem is there's a lot more for Google to sift through. And it's coming up with some losers quite often because Google's algorithm is not tuned to just the whole world producing 10 times more content than it used to. And now we're running into this crazy issue where AI content's being trained on AI content. So then the output is just fake news. So it's a massive problem for Google, and a lot of their main competitors, Perplexity, OpenAI with SearchGPT, are basically fighting that by saying, hey, we can offer something better. Will they and can they? Very debatable, and I'm very excited to kind of see how this plays out. But at the same time, we are the winners. You know, the consumer is the winner. We're going to get a better product. The brands that are creating their products, as long as your product is great, and as long as you're creating helpful, useful information for your users, like going back to the runner's glossary idea, like if you're trying to rank for running shoes, you create a bunch of helpful content about people training for 5Ks, about how running shoe fits, how to prevent shin splints, etc. Like, it's about being useful and helpful to your consumer and also providing them a very trusted, safe, and awesome user experience. When all of that works, then that's great SEO. Then it's a no-brainer for Google to rank you high. And you're making their job very easy when you make your page very easy to crawl. So that is how you influence search rankings, and that is exactly what keyword rankings are.